Hello and welcome to the Breeders' Cup Q&A show for In the Money Media. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, back with you from the Holiday Inn Express on the 101 here, walking distance from Del Mar Racetrack, and so happy to be joined by my friend. We had such a great year doing the horse player happy hours together. We are doing kind of a happy hour thing, but it's a little bit later at night. There we are. We can kind of we might be able to cheers here, Matt. Can we make that work?
I was going to say, I don't want, hang on, do it again.
Okay, there we go.
There it is.
So happy to be joined by my great friend and colleague. And, we're not really the OG podcasters. We got to give that one to Derek Simon. But we have been doing pod and video content for horse racing since 2014, and that's okay. You know him from the work he does on NBC, other places as well, and his own eponymous podcast, TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, how are things?
Hey, man, I'm happy to be out here. I'm looking forward to a couple of good days of racing out at Del Mar, and I haven't been to the track yet. We're recording this on Wednesday night. We've got a betting show on Thursday afternoon on NBCSN. That'll be my first reintroduction anyway to Del Mar. It's been I'm trying to think. I think the last time I was out here was probably Breeders' Cup in 2017. So
is that right?
Yeah, I don't think I can't. I mean, I was just kind of rattling my brain to find out if I had been out here prior or since then. I don't think I have been. So first time in a minute for me out here.
You're missing out. I mean, the Bing Crosby meet, I mean, I get it, with Saratoga and Del Mar at the same time now. I used to come out every week that Saratoga wasn't. It used to be either the first week or the last week. I would always do Del Mar. With the advent of the Crosby meet, I try to get out here for that. And then, I just love North County, San Diego. Try to get out here 1 or 2 times a year. When there isn't this little bug going around and we can travel normally, I try to get out here as often as possible. But it's great to be back here for the Breeders' Cup, and I'm excited by this show. For those that don't know the concept, we have our In the Money Plus folks able to ask questions, and we're going to answer them on the show. For folks interested in the Money Plus and all the extra content we've got cooking over there, go to inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. There's some really good stuff and more coming in the next couple of days. We definitely recommend that you check it out. But of course, we also have a lot of great free content. We did a nice live stream tonight, our final answer show. It was semi-disappointing, Matt. We didn't do our traditional crossover Matt Bernier show, In the Money Media show this year, but I'm sure we'll be coming across a lot of opinions. And of course, folks can check out what you have up as well. You have your final answers are already up there, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that the pod that I do, Breeders' Cup week, we've done it 2 years in a row, and we did it also Derby week earlier this year. It's not so much about my opinions. You can find my stuff in a few different spots. It's more about the listeners and the viewers that are really the lifeline of any of the stuff that we do. And affording them the opportunity to perhaps get their voice out there and their opinion out there, and maybe a place that they wouldn't customarily be able to. So I was pleased with the turnout. It was a little lighter than we've had in the past, but I think everybody's head is spinning a bit. So I was happy to get as many different opinions in there as we did, and some returning guests, some new guests, fresh faces. It's always fun. So I was happy to get that out there earlier this week. And my opinions, we'll find out, man. I'm coming into this thing. I don't want to jinx myself, but I feel good. Going into Keeneland last year, I felt okay, but not as though I was in great form. Last second qualified for BC last weekend. I feel like for the past month, I've had some pretty good opinions. They don't always win, but they're at least running. I'm hopeful I can get one more weekend. That's all I'm asking for. Give me one more weekend of decent opinions.
I love it, and I love that you're in the contest. Are you double-barreled going forward here?
Just one. I actually had thought about trying one more time to take a sort of a last-second swing to get a second entry, but I probably should just be thankful that I have the one that I do, and I can actually participate again.
In the Money Media, very well represented at the BCBC. You're involved. JK will be involved. Matt Fagfolgi will be involved, and Howard Kravitz, who's done stuff for us as well. So it's been a long day. If I'm a little off, forgive me. The first show today was 6:45 a.m. We did Baby Talk with Sean Tugel, and it is currently about 11:45 local time. So, it's been a long day, but very excited to do some reactions to the questions we're about to have. And then, you know, I think we should feel free to pepper ourselves with questions as well as we go along, Matt, and get a chance to get out all the Breeders' Cup content that we want to do. We're getting near the end. There will be a pro players roundtable tomorrow. I'm still trying to finalize the guest list for that one, but you know, it's been a great week out here at Del Mar and been very fun covering the races on In the Money Media over at theraces.com, etc. I think we should dive into the first question. Producer AJ has been also having a marathon day helping with all the stuff, and he'll kick us off with a question from Chris Jones, who says that the Euro contingent for the Juvenile Phillies turf looks weak in his opinion this year, as does the overall field. Brad Cox's Bubble Rock looks interesting to Chris. Hasn't heard much about her on the stretch out to a mile from 6 furlongs. Is Bubble Rock on either of our radars? Matt Bernier, we'll start with you. What do you think about this one's chances?
You know, she's an interesting case because on figs, she makes all the sense in the world. She continues to improve. I like the fact that she's run fast at this time of year compared to some of the other girls in this race. When I watched that last race in the Matron, I guess I just expected a bigger finish because it looked like rounding the far turn, like she'd go off and win by 5. And it felt very workmanlike down the lane. I'm not worried about the stretch out in distance. She is bred to be able to handle a mile easily, if not longer than that. It's just, I kind of expected a little bit more out of her. Doesn't mean she can't run well. She's 8-1 in the morning line. I made her 16-1. I don't think I'm going to get 16-1. And even at that point, there are going to be other horses I'm more interested in. So I don't want to totally cold water her, but at the same time, I don't know that I have her on the short list of horses that I'd look at as I think they're likely winners.
I agree with you, Matt. I mean, we just don't see the kind of finish going shorter that suggests to me that this individual, despite the breeding saying that the mile is okay, is gonna stretch out. You look at pace figures in the race, and you could even make a case based on how fast she's run early that she could be on the lead in this spot. And I'm not sure. I mean, I take our commenter's point. It's not the strongest European contingent that we've ever seen in this race, but I'm a big fan of Cachet. This is a runner who has figures and form that fit in this spot, well drawn, mise en scène, who I liked off the pre-entries, drawn out in the car park. I think Cachet, who looks like an athletic individual who should be able to handle the configuration, I would not rule out either of those two from the foreign team in this spot. I think the Europeans might be a little bit stronger than our commenter suggests in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Phillies turf. And I'm also, I like Pizza Bianca. I mean, this is a horse that had a trip in a fast race and coming back in this spot. I mean, we had a lot of questions earlier. Christophe Clement, why has he never won a Breeders' Cup race? Well, I think the answer is because it's really darn tough to win a Breeders' Cup race. I don't think there's any reason why he can't win. And Pizza Bianca, to me, gives him a good chance to have his first ever winner. What do you like in this race in terms of a selection?
Well, and to your point about Clement, I mean, it's not as though he hasn't had horses run well. I mean, I actually just went back and watched the Juvenile turf from 2017. I believe it was the Juvenile turf. Maybe it was Juvenile Phillies turf. But best performance was a horse I liked that day. I believe it was a Clement filly who ran second in that spot. So it's not as though they don't pick their feet up. To your point, it's just very difficult to win these races. I do like Pizza Bianca. I think she makes a lot of sense in here. I thought the debut, we actually were on a happy hour that day when she debuted. We liked her up there at Saratoga. She ran really well. And we were questioning, were the top two really that much better than everyone else? Or maybe it was a suspect group. I think we both kind of concluded that it was probably a pretty decent race. She came back and I thought ran really well in the Natalma up at Woodbine. She never had to steady, but she had to wait a little bit at the top of the lane and still kicked on down at the end. To me, she would probably be sort of my second pick in here. I like California Angel. I think she's a talented filly. She is the story, I think. If you found anyone that wasn't rooting for George Leonard III or anyone involved with this, exactly. I mean, you're going to get a lump of coal for the holidays. I mean, you're just not the friendliest people. I think California Angel is a fantastic story. I hate the draw for her. I think she's going to have a lot of work to do against a better group. This is a long-winded way of saying, despite the fact that the clock may not suggest this, I think Haughty's a superstar. And I may be going a little overboard there, but she has been visually spectacular, in my opinion, in both of her starts. And the fact that she has shown such different running styles from the debut at Belmont to the pace pressing trip that she just pulled at Keeneland a few weeks ago, she needs to run faster, no question about it. But I just think Haughty has everything I would be looking for in a 2-year-old visually, as far as the way that they run, the connections involved. I think Haughty is the goods. She's the horse I'm going to be picking and hopefully betting in the BCBC.
The clock does put me off her a little bit. The race just didn't come back as fast as it looked. And I worry with the success that Brown has had in the race that she's just going to catch all manner of money. I mean, there's a world in which she could be favorite to me. And that would just
I'm afraid of that.
Short. Yeah.
I'm afraid of that.
But I mean, obviously I like her, and in exotic wagers where, I'm keying in on opinions elsewhere, of course, the ones you've mentioned are going to be on the tickets. And what a story it would be if we could get from that far outside post, California Angel in. I mean, that's one I will not make a penny if that happens, and I will be happy as a clam, because that would just be something to see. All right, AJ, let's pivot to the next question. Nick Rogers asks, could Oviatt Class be the next Texas Red? Same jockey trainer, and they both ran late closing thirds in the American Pharoah Stakes. Well, we've been talking about the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, Matt, and I do remember vividly in your big run in that event back a minute or two ago, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, unfortunately, a few minutes ago.
I didn't want to. Well, I was almost going to say the year, and I was like, yeah, maybe that's not right. So, but I know you were a huge Texas Red fan, so I'm on record as liking Oviatt Class for underneath. I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, if you recall, we actually talked about the American Pharoah on one of the happy hours a few months back, and I said leading into that, from that maiden score, I got whiffs of Texas Red because looks like the sort of horse that added ground is going to be to his benefit. I think getting out of California would do this one a great deal of good. I'm already thinking, knowing that Keith DeSormo has run horses in Louisiana, where both he and Kent are from, I could see this horse ending up at the fairgrounds at some point early on as a 3-year-old, running in the Risen Star, running in those races. I don't know that Oviatt Class is good enough to win this race, but to your point, this one feels very much like, put it this way, if you're somebody who likes a few horses as far as win candidates are concerned, and you're putting together exactas or tries or supers, you could almost key Oviatt Class in second, third, and fourth if you don't think that he's necessarily good enough to win, but he's going to come with his run. That's another way. I think everyone just automatically thinks of a key, saying, oh, I'm going to key this horse in first or second, and then fill out the underneath pieces. A reverse key is almost as valuable, if not more so. If you can find the horse that's going to run second, third, or fourth, and then put together the winners on top, I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
I agree. And sometimes I think because it's a little bit more counterintuitive, it's even better than coming up with the top-down key. The bottom-up trifecta key, definitely a strategy that has made me money over the years. And I think Oviatt Class is an interesting horse as far as that goes. Who are the other horses you would want to put with Oviatt Class, though, Matt, in that scenario?
Well, I guess everything starts with Jack Christopher, and you need to decide what you think of him. Again, from a speed figure standpoint, he's the horse to beat. I've said it on the happy hours in the past. I'm approaching him as if he is Jackie's Warrior all over again, and that's not a bad thing. I think he's a very brilliant racehorse. You don't do the things he's done as a 2-year-old, run as fast as he has, and not have something there. I don't see a route in this pedigree, despite the fact that it's a mile and a 16th. I'm not arguing that, if he's going to get a route, this is it. I just don't see him being the kind of horse that's going to want to go longer when all is said and done. I'm playing against him. And again, I feel like we're just going to keep talking about the happy hours and horses we talked about. I mentioned after his debut that Command Performance was the 2-year-old that I was highest on, period. Regardless of what they had done, regardless of where they were. I thought Command Performance was the one that had the most upside, period. And lo and behold, they did go to the Champagne. He ran well enough that he's going to show up here. He's going to get the 2 turns. He should theoretically get pace. I understand the argument against from a value standpoint. If you're someone who feels like he should be 8 or 10 to 1 and that he's never won a race, he's going to take on some good horses. I made him 3 to 1. Maybe that's a bit overzealous. I think he is arguably as likely a winner as Jack Christopher is. I think the winner comes out of New York for the Juvenile.
Oh, wow, that's a bold opinion. I know you like Command Performance, and I like the horse too. I wonder about the pace scenario and if Jack Christopher can't just get away from there. I mean, it's not the post I would have chosen, but I just think you do have the fastest horse with a potential pace advantage. And I think he shapes like the 2 turns are going to be okay, but I respect Command Performance, and I certainly have him in my picks as well. Any other numbers you'd want to have in there over yacht class in terms of your bottom-up tri-key idea?
Well, I think both Baffert horses are legitimate talents. I feel like I'm seeing more and more people that prefer Pinehurst over Corniche, and I don't know that I don't disagree with it, but I also don't know that I can fully sort of, condone that idea, because as good as Pinehurst has been, he's been gone for a long time and he's going to have to deal with a number of firsts, whereas Corniche has proven himself going 2 turns. Yeah, the Fig regressed slightly, but I thought he ran relatively well that day in the American Pharoah. I think he makes plenty of sense. That outside draw is far from ideal. He's going to probably need to prove that he can sit off of a target, but I think both of the Baffert horses make sense.
All right, good stuff, Matt. Let's bring a word from our sponsor for today's show. So happy to be working with this exciting new racing partnership, the Adelphi Racing Club. Adelphi is a racing club of like-minded people who enjoy racing and the camaraderie of being part of something bigger than themselves. Not just a racing partnership, but a true community. Adelphi's founding partners have owned horses in other partnerships and syndicates, as well as on their own, and their overarching goal is to blend the benefits of solo ownership without having to deal with the administrative hassles with the thrill of the partnership experience. Adelphi offer an interactive ownership experience with real-time access to other partners, trainers, bloodstock advisors, and members of the team. This is a way to become a racing insider almost automatically. Adelphi partners receive a lot of different content on their horses in multimedia forms, and hopefully we're going to be getting more involved in doing that as well over here on the In the Money Media team. And more important than all of it, there's an exciting class of yearling prospects now available, including, and we'll just name a couple here, and one that I know JK is super interested in, a horse called Salivo, named after the restaurant that we all love. Street Sense filly, bred to be fast and early, do well early, and has some European influence in that pedigree as well. Ray Handel's going to be training that one in the spring. And then there is a Taprit colt as well in the partnership offering. Looks to be a 2-turn horse. Dad obviously won the Belmont Stakes, and the dam was a speedy stakes performer out of Distorted, out of a mare by Distorted Humor. Second dam, a stakes winner as well. You can join the club at Adelphi Racing, adelphiracing.com. You can also reach out to our man Matt over there, Matt at adelphiracing.com. And on social media, check out Adelphi_racing on Insta, and on Twitter, it's at Adelphi Club. Looking forward to bringing you a lot more information about the Adelphi Racing Club in the coming weeks and months. Very excited about our partnership with them. AJ, let's bring in another question. Jeff Saraki asks, do you think Ekko Zulu can get the distance? We saw what happened last year with Jackie when a super talented 2-year-old is asked to stretch out for the first time, and that can really be a big unknown. Let's start there, Matt. What do you think about Ekko Zulu's chances of getting the 2 turns?
Yeah, the distance isn't the thing that concerns me about Ekko Zulu. I'm more concerned about the class that she's going to be taking on, or the class of the runners she'll be taking on, because to be fair, if you go through and really want to poke holes in her 3 races, it's not that she hasn't run fast. It's not that she hasn't been brilliant. It has more to do with what she's been beating. And I think she's taking on at least 2 really, really good quality fillies in Juju's Map and Hidden Connection. She could win this race, Ekko Zulu, but I think she's going to have to work a lot harder against much better horses and going out to 2 turns for the first time. It's just, to me, it's not an intriguing betting proposition, put it that way. It's not that I don't think she can do it. It's just I don't know that I'm really going to be all that enticed to make a play on her first time for all these things that we just laid out.
I agree completely. I mean, at odds on, when you're dealing with the Juju's Map and Hidden Connection situation, it's just not, it's not appealing. Ekko Zulu, I think, technically is the most likely winner, or maybe for me, most likely winner with Hidden Connection. But then Hidden Connection becomes the easy bet. She's only had the 2 runs. We talked all the time on the happy hours about the condition arrow, right, Matt? And I mean, Ekko
Yeah.
Zulu, I mean, her condition arrow to me, like at best is, it's a straight line, and Hidden Connection only in the third career start, that's pointed straight up. I'm with Hidden Connection here. I think she's going to win, and I like her, not just because of our pals over at Black Type Thoroughbreds. I just really like the filly, and I think she looks amazing. Ekko Zulu would be no surprise, and I would certainly be saving with, but that's how I see the race. Who's your pick in here?
I'm on Juju's map. And for me, it's basically an A and then two Bs, where Juju's map has, to me, shown the perfect combination that neither of the other two fillies has shown. Ekko Zulu is yet to go 2 turns. Hidden Connection, I'm not saying she can't do it, but she's going to face a pace that is considerably faster than what she's ran into in that Pocahontas. And it just makes me wonder a little bit, is she going to be as effective coming from a little farther off of it against fillies of this caliber compared to that Candy trip that she worked out in the Pocahontas? Juju's map has gone fast. She's sat comfortably off of horses. She galloped out like a monster in her most recent start. Juju's map feels like British Idiom all over again to me. And Brad Cox won this race with her a few years ago. I have Juju's map as a slightly more likely winner than Ekko Zulu and Hidden Connection. I have Juju's map at 2-1 and both Ekko Zulu and Hidden Connection at 3-1.
That doesn't sound crazy to me, and I mean, I think you make some very good points. I was hoping trip-wise it would work out just beautifully for Hidden Connection to sit while those other two trade some punches, and hopefully with her proven experience going the 2 turns, she can come get them. But I mean, you make a compelling case as well. AJ, let's see that question again, because there was a second part from Jeff as well that we can get to. The Asmussen barn has been a bit cold in recent weeks. How much stock do you put in these types of everyday horse player trends, hot and cold trainers, when it comes to the Breeders' Cup? I'll tell you what, specifically about the Asmussen barn, I am super curious to see how these horses are running around Del Mar, because he made that unusual decision to ship out here a month early and train the horses at Santa Anita over that deeper, more tiring track. If his horses, like if Ekko Zulu runs off the screen, if she runs better than she's ever run before, I'm going to be upgrading all the Asmussen runners, just because I think there might be signal in the unusual preparations that they've made. And, later on Saturday, there's a couple Asmussen runners for different reasons I think are very intriguing. Clairiere, to me, just my personal guy who likes to look at horses' opinion, is the best looking horse I've seen all week. It was one of those I was freaking starstruck seeing her, man.
More. Keep talking her up.
Oh my God. Who is that? She looked like, the way she was moving, it was like a metronome. I'm in love with this filly. And, she's one I've always loved. And I didn't really come up with her on form. On form, she'd be like my 4th pick in the race, but I'm making her my 2nd pick in the race based on the impression she made to me. I was just, they talk about, you fall in love and it's like getting struck by lightning. That was a little bit me and Clairiere. So I'm too much of a numbers and form geek to completely commit to that and say, oh, she's my top pick because of that. I still think that race is going to be run to suit the closers. And the first closer I came up with, the one I've bet so far in the race, is Dunbar Road. She'll technically be my top pick, but Clairiere is right there. She looks amazing. And then another runner, I don't know if or when we'll talk about this race, but if all the Asmussens are running out of their skin, I mean, I've already made Max Player my pick in the Classic. And again, not the most likely winner, but I think this is a horse who, isn't far behind on figures, loves the distance. And I mean, I think this horse could be, he's 9-1 in the UK right now. I took that happily. And I mean, if he's 8 or 10-1 on the tote, I'm very interested if the Asmussens are all, overperforming. So anyway, I don't worry about what Asmussen's been doing. I worry, since he took a different approach to his runners at the Breeders' Cup, I worry about how they're doing here. I mean, if Ekko Zulu runs last, I'll be honest, it's going to temper my enthusiasm about the other one. So that's actually kind of a sneaky important race for me. How do you deal with these short-term fluctuations of form at the Breeders' Cup?
To me, and some folks have brought it up as well about Ricardo Santana, who is just mired in this just unbelievably cold spell. I believe he's almost 0 for 80 or 0 for 90 in his last, 80 or 90 runs. To me, personally, I don't care. I know what the rider's capable of. I know what the trainer's capable of. I'm not all of a sudden, because of one little blip on the radar, going to completely change the way that I think about these connections and these outfits. And to your point, not so much on Friday. If Asmussen's barn has a good day on Saturday, I'm at least going to be in the hunt of the BCBC because Clarier's my top pick. Max Player's my top pick. Jackie's Warrior's my top pick. Now, granted, Jackie's Warrior, I'm not going to have much money involved in that race. But the distaff, I can promise you, that's probably going to be either the last ditch effort or we're going to look to open up and push hard and take advantage, because you brought up the fact that you didn't necessarily see it on form. And I understand that because on numbers, she is a little light. I love the way of the look of the form heading into this race, where the argument that I've made, every time she's paired up career buyer tops, she has moved forward. The only time that didn't happen was in the coaching club in a race where she was up, forced to be close to the pace. And that's not a running style. She's a horse that wants to be taken back and make that one run. If you consider the Alabama, her effective next start following the paired up 91s in the Kentucky Oaks and the Mother Goose, she moved up to a new top of 93. She came back and paired that up in the Cotillion. I think she moves forward, not just because of everything that we've heard and seen from her on the racetrack in the mornings, but then you look at some other speed figures as well. The thing that really startled me, I'm someone who more often than not, and it's not for any reasons, but more often than not, I look at the buyer speed figures and I look at the time form US ratings. But on big days, I want to consult some other numbers. I've talked about it. I use HTR, a computer program I think is very valuable. I also, on big days, will grab Thorograph because I think Jerry Brown and everyone does a great job. And I did not anticipate seeing the number on Thorograph that Clariere earned in the Cotillion. Based on that, you could argue she's the second fastest horse as far as the last race is concerned. Latruska earned a 1, Clariere earned a 1 1/4. I mean, we're talking about, because of ground loss, admittedly, and again, against an inferior group of 3-year-olds, it's a different story against good quality older mares. But I'll tell you what, you're telling me I can get something close to 8 or 9 to 1. I made her 6 to 1. I said it the other day. I don't even remember where I was or who I was talking to. But the idea of the Breeders' Cup, really, when you look at it, you shouldn't approach it any differently than you would a Friday at Aqueduct. If the value's there, take it. And if it's not there, reassess. Either find a different wager where you can find value, or say, you know what? I'm making it up. You love Latruska. You think she should be 2 to 1. She's 6 to 5. You can't bet her at that price. Just because it's the Breeders' Cup distaff doesn't mean that you all of a sudden just throw caution to the wind and say, oh, well, I love her, I got to bet her. That's not the right way to do it. You should just maintain that sort of level-headedness that you need to on a day in and day out basis. Long-winded way of saying, I love Clariere, and you brought up Max Player. I'm sure we'll get to the Classic in a little bit, but I'm with you. You and I are looking at that race the same way.
It's so funny. I love it. I mean, it's great. I thought those were both, especially Max Player, I thought was a fairly goofy opinion. Let's talk about him another minute. I don't know if we have another I can't remember the questions that we're going to be teed up for here by AJ, but my one thing about Max Player is, funny enough, I don't want him to sit as close as he's been in these last couple of races. I think he needs to make one run. I think if he goes up and tries to run with those boogers, he's going to get cooked. But I think at the price, it's worth, the idea that he's going to sit 6 lengths off this time instead of 2. What trip do you want from Max Player? I
don't think he's naturally fast enough to even really be that close to those front runners.
Right.
I think he's one of those horses that, we did the show at the Brentwood prior to the Jockey Club, and I needed him to prove to me that Suburban wasn't just a fluke, a flash in the pan where he took advantage of a wet track.
Slop-aided, yep.
And you had a horse in Mystic Guide who unfortunately was injured coming out of that race and, has been since sidelined. But then again, I go back and watch the last 2 races, and I'll tell you what, his final quarter miles, he runs. And I don't think that should go overlooked in a 1.25 mile race. No, totally he's not as fast as Knicks Go or Medina Spirit or Hot Rod Charlie. I know Hot Rod Charlie has become the buzz horse of the entire weekend, and rightfully so. He's fast. It looks like he's training forwardly. Max Player has a bit of Vino Rosso in him to me, where he's not the flashiest on paper, but he wants every bit of that 1.25 miles. And I think the circumstances could present themselves that he may actually take advantage. Now, if you want to kind of either cold water or build even more of a case for Clairiere, I don't know what your thoughts were. I saw a couple of the workouts on XBTV of Max Player and Clairiere at Santa Anita. And Clairiere looked like she could have run 2 laps around him before Max Player even picked his feet up. I don't know if that's a positive. I don't know if it's a positive for her or a negative for him.
That's a great point. I do agree that she's looked better. He looked fine the other day too, though. I think it's just one of those things. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily a flashy workhorse, but I mean, I'm very, very interested to see what happens. I mean, the distaff is fascinating. The Classic is fascinating. It's just the Saturday Breeders' Cup races. You know, as we get down to the sharp end there late, they're pretty darn fascinating. And it's just so funny that in races that you could argue a lot of different ways, you and I end up on the same thing. It's pretty funny. Let's hope we're right.
The other thing I will say real quick about Max Player, and you know, I brought up Thorograph, and not to just keep, you know, pumping tires. His numbers are much faster than I thought they would be on the Thorograph scale. I mean, he's not quite at Nick's Go's level, but he's basically number 2 as far as Thorograph numbers are concerned. So, and
the thing you got to remember is that very often that difference between 9 furlongs and 10 furlongs plays like way more than a furlong. You know what I mean? They're it's really a different animal. You know, I don't really mind that much what you can run at 9 furlongs. Like I want to. Now, I know. I mean, look, there's a world in which Nick's Go just blitzes them. I made him my 3rd pick in the race. A win would be no surprise. He'll be on plenty of tickets. But the old school horse player in me expects him to get cooked and to bring some of that 10 furlong form into play. And in that case, Max Player is going to take a lot of beating. All right, AJ, let's move to the next question. Peter T, and it's not me, asked,
I was going to say, is this you?
No, I didn't load it. I didn't load it up. In the Juvenile Phillies turf, do you make anything of Joelle being on Koala Princess instead of Pizza Bianca? Almost 300 rides with Clement in the last 2 years. Good success and teaming up in other BC races. Why would he dump Pizza after that solid Natalma run? I'll tell you what. I mean, I would just generally speaking caution doing too much like work when it comes to the jockey trainer musical chairs. You know, I mean, sometimes a horse, a jockey will give a commitment to a horse. I mean, it is certainly a positive for Koala Princess to have Joelle over Pizza Bianca, but you know, it's quite possible that there's something else at play. But I mean, it's a really good and interesting point. I mean, I'm somebody who in this race has gone on record. Cachet is my top pick. Pizza Bianca is my 2nd pick. But I mean, Koala Princess really, I think I probably need to have it in the mix, and the Rosario booking. I mean, it's not insignificant. I just, you know, but there could be a lot of stories there. I mean, really, those are the 3 horses I want in this race.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like on a day-to-day basis, don't read so much into the jockey assignments because of the point that you brought up. Commitments are made. You need to honor them. With the Breeders' Cup, I do think, especially with somebody like Rosario, you kind of have the juice where you can sit there and say, I want this one, I want this one, I want this one. Look, I think he had a choice between 2 of the top choices in the American market anyway. I mean, between Pizza Bianca and Koala Princess, you know, it's hard to say because keeping in mind that Koala Princess has I would call it an unorthodox way of getting to a Breeders' Cup, going from a 5.5 turf run at Monmouth to the 6.5 at Kentucky Downs. I mean, that is not the the path most traveled en route to the Breeders' Cup, but she's looked fantastic in both races. So I do think there's at least a little bit of signal there for the Breeders' Cup. On a day-to-day basis, don't read too much into it. As far as this weekend's concerned, I think maybe you want to give it I think at the Godolphin runners. I mean, where William Buick ends up, I put a little bit more stock in that compared to, not to say that you're going to lose anything with Frankie Dettori, but I think there is something to that. That Buick is the first call for Charlie Appleby and Godolphin, and I think he's going to ride the horses that he thinks he has the best chance of winning on.
Makes sense to me. Who's your selection in here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to stick with Haughty. I don't think she's, again, from a clock standpoint, she is not the most likely winner. But boy, she ticks all the boxes, and I think maybe I'm reading too much into this, but Chad Brown is someone who knows typically what he's got. I mean, he's not someone who's going to get caught, fooled by a certain horse thinking that they're better than they are, or vice versa. For him, I believe he did an interview on TVG earlier this week with Kate and Brader, I believe. I could be wrong, and I apologize if I am, but effectively saying we were afraid she wasn't going to get in. I mean, that's a rather bold statement. You're saying you were afraid she wasn't going to get in. Chad doesn't need to just run for the sake of running. He's only going to run if they think they got a chance. And I think the way that he's talked about this filly, I think he thinks she's very good. And again, that versatility that she's shown in those first 2 starts, that to me speaks volumes about a horse's mind. I acknowledge she may be an underlay when all is said and done, but I think she is very, very good.
Makes sense to me. All right, AJ, let's move on to the next question. Kimberly asks, which turf race does a North American horse have a best shot to win? And then there's a second question about Knicks Go. We will get to that. But let's start with this turf race question. Where do you think the Americans have their best shot, Matt?
I'm going to go with the mile on Saturday because the Europeans that are here, I acknowledge that Space Blues is very talented. The distance isn't necessarily the thing that gives me slight cause for pause. I recognize he's run very well on firm turf in the past. I do just wonder a little bit. Everyone's getting caught up in that last run in the Prix de la Forêt over at Longchamp. That was over an absolute bog. And yes, he flew home. But 7 or about 7 over a bog is a lot different than what he's going to get here on Saturday. I think some of the American horses are particularly good. By the time folks are probably listening to this, the cat will be out of the bag. One of my favorite horses of the weekend is one that I've already had success with a few weeks ago. I think In Love is legit. I don't think it's a matter of taking advantage of circumstances at Kentucky Downs or maybe a less than stellar field at Keeneland. I just think this is a horse that had always shown ability, and the minute the blinkers went on, it all came together. And yes, you've had perfect trips in the last 2 races, and typically I would suggest you don't bet those horses because the likelihood of them getting another perfect trip is pretty slim. But there is something to be said about when you see a stark contrast in the form and there was a change, there's a reason, a catalyst for it. I think that's In Love. I think In Love has a major chance to win this thing.
Let's look back, AJ, to Kimberly's other question. I think we dealt with it, but we'll deal with it again. I think it was about Knicks Go getting the 1.25 miles. This is a horse that I think with the right pace scenario could get 1.25 miles, but I am really worried with so much other speed in there in terms of one way, Medina Spirit and blinker added, Hot Rod Charlie. I just don't think it's going to be easy. Look, I'm going to play it, 25% of my play is going to probably have Knicks Go on top because I think there's a world in which he just blitzes them. But my main opinion in the race is that under these circumstances, the 1.25 miles may be very tricky. Specifically regarding Knicks Go, what do you think about this 1.25 miles, Matt?
Put it this way, I would be more concerned about him getting headed and not wanting to fight. I think if he's allowed to get out there on the front end, I'm not worried about 1.25 miles. I think he's just going to blow the doors off the field. It's more a matter of, is he going to need to fight to get the lead? Because I don't know that this horse has fight in him. And that's a very, very dangerous prospect at a short price to take a horse that may not have a will to fight.
The English expression, I think it comes from cricket, is the idea of a flat track bully.
Yes.
And I mean, Knicks Go has some flat track bully in him for sure. When he's gotten in a tussle, when he's gotten in a scramble, he said, maybe not today. This is not Jackie's Warrior in terms of like racehorse heart. He's so fast. He's so brilliant. He may just do it anyway. But at a short price, I'm tempted to go another way. I'll
tell you what, in the listening to the Monster Pod, in only the way that Mike Beer can lay it out, I thought it was amazing when he goes, I'm supposed to be impressed by the Cornhusker. And I don't mean that as a shot against our friends at Prairie Meadows. But
Bob Nastanovich is going to cross you off his holiday card list, Matt.
I burst out laughing when I heard him
You're not
go,
getting any free tickets to pavement shows.
When he said the Cornhuskers, the key piece of form for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And again, our friends at Prairie Meadows, I don't mean that in a negative way, but to Mike's point, that is the fastest race he's run all year. And I mean, it's a major difference between running against Last Judgment and Rated R Superstar and having to deal with Medina Spirit and Hot Rod Charlie and Essential Quality and Max Flair. And I mean, keep going, just name them. So point being that last piece in the Monster Pod made me laugh out loud.
That's great. Yeah, that Mike Beer is pretty talented, isn't he? We need
he's the best.
We need to
He's
do more.
Best.
We need to do more with him.
And I say that not just because he used to be a colleague. I think he is. I think he's the best, period. I think he's the best handicapper. If you needed to have one person pick one horse in one race, I'd probably go to Mike Beer.
He's great. He's going to be here this weekend, too. I look forward to hopefully hoisting a drink with him. Yeah, he's coming in. And I think he's coming in mostly as like a civilian/fan. So we actually might be able to have some fun with our old pal. I mean, there's, the old place with the letters. There's a lot of talented people there. Obviously Dan Illman, one of my favorites, who was just absolutely underwater. He was, one of the first people I requested for the Monster Pod, and we couldn't get him, but we'll do something else with him soon. And Mike, I mean, he, as you point out, I mean, hey, as I said right to his face, I mean, if you're Marshall Graham's favorite handicapper, like you're clearly doing something right?
I think Beer. The beauty of Beer too is that he's going to call it like he sees it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the relationships or any of that. He looks at the forum and he goes, "No, this isn't going to work. Why would it work?"
Nah, he does so much work, and he's his own. He's his own dude. There's no politics coming from that guy in the best possible sense. All right, AJ, what else we got? Oh, here we go. There's a pretty nice open one. We've talked about the race a little bit. Thoughts on the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile? I am a big Space Blues fan. I really liked seeing him in person. I think this draw worked out beautifully for him with speed drawn way down low with Smooth Like Straight and speed drawn outside with blowout. I think he's going to get just a lovely toe into the race. I think he's a very likely winner. At the prices they were earlier in the week, 16-1 in the UK on Smooth Like Straight, I just thought that was too big. This is a horse that, to me, I don't have rated far at all behind Mo Forza. And so 16-1 was just too big. We've heard some good cases on Hit the Road as well. I think that trio of the local horses, I think they all go with chances. I rate them all behind Space Blues. You've given your thoughts on this one already, but any other thoughts as far as the Breeders' Cup Mile goes?
Yeah, I mean, In Love is where most of my money is going to go. Of the local contingent, I do think if you're just sort of rating them on merit, Mo Forza is the one that is the most likely. But I think of the horses coming out of the City of Hope Mile, I think Hit the Road has the argument to be made that he actually ran the best given the circumstances. Yeah, and I think he may end up being the best price of the three. So the thing that I have a difficult time, I don't want to say buying into, but these three horses are so evenly matched. Is it likely that they're the three best in this race? I have a hard time buying into that. And I don't mean that as a slight, but with them being so evenly matched, either they're the best or they're really not much of a challenge in here. And that seems a little harsh to say it's either one or the other, but boy, I mean, in all their races that they run into each other, they're separated by a length. So either they're all going to be right there at the wire in first on Saturday, or they're all going to be right there at the wire together in like sixth on Saturday.
That's a great point. I mean, the commonality of them as a negative is a very, very interesting point. And, maybe that's a reason why A Stranger is going to do well. I do think they've been an uncommonly good trio for the local circuit, and I do think that the home field advantage helps them. So if you made me pick between the two scenarios you laid out, I think I'd pick the more optimistic one versus the more pessimistic one, but it's absolutely possible that they're just all mid-pack and found wanting for class against the likes of your pick In Love or my pick Space Blues in this race. I'm going to try to find a way to keep them on side in some sort of exotic combinations if I can, but I'm not going crazy. I mean, for a guy who all I do seems like is talk about the benefits of turf form shipping west, it doesn't seem like I should be too dialed down into the local contingent, but I do like Smooth Like Straight speed. I like the idea that he could get ignored, and I just like the price he was earlier in the week. 16-1 just felt way too big for a horse that I'd probably make more like 8-1. Let's look at another question, AJ. What do we got? All right, we've got Serum Singh here. What do we think of Latruska's last work and that incident with the other horse? It was like the works got like mixed up. I mean, what's the best way to describe what happened there for the people who don't know, Matt?
Yeah, it sounds like she was supposed to have a piece of work by herself. It sounds like she typically works lone, without any kind of company. There was a horse from another barn based out here in Southern California that inadvertently got hooked up with her in the workout. They effectively ended up working head and head. To me, I tweeted shortly thereafter. I go, I mean, if she is the horse that we've made her out to be, that little hiccup is not going to be the thing that derails her. Either she is far superior to that, and something like that isn't going to really affect her. But keep in mind, it's not as though she all of a sudden lost her head and totally got into the bit and went 46 to the half. I mean, she just kind of galloped around there. I maintain if she's as good as we've made her out to be, it won't have any kind of effect. And to me, if it does, if people point at that and say that's why she loses on Saturday, then she doesn't even deserve to be involved in the Horse of the Year conversation. Yeah,
I mean, that's just crazy, isn't it? I mean, if she loses because there's too much pace and it's been a long campaign. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can't. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I feel like it's overblown. We're in the media. We know how it is. Like, we're trying to make stories and have things to talk about. But I'm not convinced that it even matters. I mean, are you?
No. I mean, I think it's much to do about nothing.
Yeah, I think that's right. A nothing burger will give it. Is she going off form? I don't think she's going off form, but I just think it's a very, very difficult assignment with so much other speed and it being such a long campaign. Question about the Del Mar track profile. I mean, I think on both horses, it's pretty clear that it typically favors horses who are handy and speedy. And I think that the tightness of the turns is the reason for that. But it's not going to mean I won't back a closer if that's the way I see the race going. Do you have any thoughts, Matt, on the Del Mar track profile?
Yeah, I did I kind of went into that on my show a few weeks ago. I will take it another step. I was watching the replays from 2017 Breeders' Cup. Keep in mind, on the main track, there was, I would say, a pretty pronounced outside bias where you were better off being a little farther off the rail than down on the inside. Having said that, it felt like both on the main track, but specifically the turf, keeping in mind that alteration they needed to make to get the Breeders' Cup here was effectively making it a tighter turf. I think I talk about turn time, and I use the product HTR, and it sort of uses the Sarton methodology as a basis. I think the horses that really run well on the bend, I think they're going to be very, very well suited this weekend, put it that way. So I'm giving those horses a little bit of an upgrade in the big picture.
So Serum had one other question there, AJ. Pop that back up there for me for a minute. Yeah, okay. The actual combinations and the picks. So now the problem with that is it gets very tedious to like list all that stuff. Frank Scottoni is going to be doing pick 4 analysis for both Friday and Saturday. I was talking to him before. He's written about 5,000 words for Saturday on the last 4 races. It's going to be must-read stuff in themoneypodcast.com/plus to check that out. I can't remember if when he does his matrices, if he lists the actual tickets, but if you're interested in that, probably the best ways to do it, there are some ADWs that will list those tickets, DRF Formulator, there's a program, drfticketmaker.com, that will you can list the horses as A's and B's, and they will then generate the tickets for you. If you want to do it old school and manual, the Steve Christ book, Exotic Betting, would be what I would recommend. Anyway, holler at me offline, and we'll talk more about this if you want to get into the specifics of ticket construction via the ABC method. There's definitely a lot to unpack there, but it's it's just tricky to list like 15 tickets or whatever, like on the website. And I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that, but Serum, if you reach out, I'll give you more, and we'll try to get this figured out without getting too bogged down in the weeds. AJ, who else we got? Okay, well, we got a long one here. Curtis Watson, Juvenile Turf Sprint. He's asking about the methodology for making figures on the turf. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but what I will say is that turf figures when it comes to the buyers, they are not always like the purest speed figures. Sometimes, in my experience, Matt, they're more like form figures where they're looking at what horses ran previously and they're doing a lot of projection. You're not always getting raw information in terms of what the speed figure is. And I would say my general advice about it is to consult other figure makers and consider, if you're really interested in this for turf races, make your own figures. Like, you know, it's definitely it's a sticky wicket, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. What do you think, Matt, in general? I mean, when you see these things where horses on the same day, they're running different times, they're running the same time and getting different figures, like, how do you factor that into your handicapping?
Well, so I'm looking at actually I've pulled up the chart, and I think this Curtis, I think you may have a little bit of a hiccup on your days, because now keep in mind, when you're comparing a race on one day compared to another day, it's apples to oranges. You can't really do it that way. Yes, there is the par that you're basing things off of, but a track can be faster or slower on any given day. I'm going through one time I ran on October 1st in the 5th race. That was the Speakeasy. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pulling it up right now on the fly. Are you saying that the horse ran on October 10th? Because if that's the case, yeah. So
different days are different things.
Yeah,
the variant change. I might have missed, reading that in real time. I may have missed it. I mean, every day has its own variant. So the time from one day to the time 10 days later, that doesn't mean anything, because you're looking at what the group of horses that ran on one day did relative to another. I thought, but interestingly, to Curtis's point, there are same days sometimes where the slower running horse will get a faster running figure under the theory that, the track must have changed. But what sometimes happens there is they're making more of a form figure than a speed figure, and not always necessarily admitting it. Forgive me, Andy.
No, and Curtis, so the idea is different days, you can't compare them. You can't compare the two because, again, to Pete's point, variants change from day to day. Maybe the same distance, maybe the same run-up, maybe all that jazz. The tracks can play faster or slower on any given day. No. Your point, though, it is one that you need to be aware of, because to your point, Pete, and you brought it up, at the beginning of the year, there was the Kilroe Mile at Santa Anita, and I use this one as the example. The Grade 1 horses ran considerably slower than N1X or N2X types earlier on the card. And the Grade 1 runners ended up getting effectively the same fig. And many people wondered, well, did the variant change? Why was this done? And the logic is, how likely is it that these N2X runners ran faster than Grade 1 runners ran today? Well, is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? No. And that's where a bit of the subjectivity comes into going through and making speed figures. Because if it was as simple as the time, you're going to have those random performances that, in all honesty, don't seem to make any sense. Whether they're too slow or they're too fast, you have to use a little bit of thought and logic that goes into putting things together. And look, this is also coming from someone, for the longest time when I first got into it, I said, why don't you just go with whatever the time is and use that going forward? Well, as time has gone by, I understand more that this is much more of a dance than a mechanical piece. You need to be able to assess when things need to change, as opposed to just saying, this is what it is. Well, it's not that simple.
All right. We've got 14 more questions, if you can believe it, Matt.
Oh my God.
We're not going to go much more. We're going to try to speed round it. We're going to try to get to all of them, and we're going to try to get out of here in 65 minutes. That's my goal. Because
Lightning
tomorrow's
round.
Another long day.
Yeah.
Today started early. AJ, let's bang through them. All right, 3 Saturday horses poised to run the best race of their lives. Boy, this is a lot. Geez, 3. All right, I don't know that we can do this in exactly the way that it's asked. Forget 3 Saturday horses. Give me 1 Saturday horse, Matt, poised to run the best race of its life.
Clarier.
I mean, I can't disagree with that. The way that she has looked in the mornings. I mean, I think I'm gonna go ahead and piggyback with you. I mean, she just looks so good. And how about one that's going to be a short price, but clearly seems to have fallen off the form. Now, clearly seems to have fallen off the form is tough. I mean, maybe the one I'm going to throw Gamine out there as a possibility for that question. I mean, look, she can win, but I'm just not excited about betting her in that race at that price based on the numbers she's running now, based on what she's been doing before. Is there a Saturday horse for you that you feel like you think is the condition arrow is pointed down?
I do. This is very dangerous. I do wonder a little bit about Adaria.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Bad post too.
Bad post. And, to be fair, I put it this way. Her form was better coming into last year's Breeders' Cup, in my opinion, than it is now. That doesn't mean that she can't win, but you look at some of the numbers that she's returning right now. I do wonder if maybe last year was when she was really at her absolute peak, and maybe you're going to get a bit of a, I don't want to say stub your toe in this race on Saturday, but maybe she's not quite what she was last year.
Let's keep it going, AJ. Paul Edwards, one of the most valuable BC angles for him is picking favorites to stand against. Most vulnerable favorites on the weekend. Love this question. Matt, where does your brain go?
Well, good question. I mean, you can go so many different ways. I'm running through Saturday. I'm running through the Friday races. I mean, I guess from a morning line standpoint, which is not always the best thing to base your opinions off of, I guess you could go with Jack Christopher, just in the fact that he has to prove that he can go 2 turns. He's going to have to deal with a little bit of other pace from a horse like Corniche on the far outside. He's got to ship out of New York for the first time. He's not necessarily what I would call a vulnerable favorite, meaning I don't think he's going to pick his feet up. Vulnerable favorite. I don't know that I think there is one that's truly, truly vulnerable. I think the favorites are all pretty stout this weekend. I think you can beat them, but I don't know that I look at one of them and just circle and say, I am way against. I think you can go a few different ways.
I've got one. I'm against Golden Pal. I just don't think he has the edge against these others who to be the price that he's going to be. A big fan of Emirati Anna in there, and I'm okay. The opportunity to place lay Golden Pal, I would probably take, assuming that would be, he'd be 1 to 2 or something to run in the top 3. I'd stand against him. I don't know. I'm just the last figure wasn't very good. The race 2 back was abominable. I'm just not a fan. What do you think of him?
To be honest, I thought he had to work a lot harder in that Woodford than I would have expected. But having said that, I've got to a point now where Wesley Ward and Turf Sprint, I just, whether I like the horse or not, you have to respect him.
You've seen that movie before.
Yeah, I've been down this road before, and I don't know that I need to totally get burned. I will say I'm not going to pick him in that race. We're putting together on the betting show on Thursdays. Some of you listening to this later, you probably already missed out on it, but we're going to rerun it a few times. We've put together a ticket for the all turf pick 4 on Saturday. Myself, Edzo, Eddie Olczyk, and Nick Luck. And this race, we are deep. We are 8 deep in here. And the horse that I'm going to put on top, it is not the most likely winner by a long shot. I think Caravel is at least interesting. Because
I like her.
I think the firm turf is going to be to her benefit, and getting the 5 furlongs, flat 5, draw a line through that Parks race, because it's not even a turf course. I don't know what that was. It was like a swamp. You go to the run 2 back in the Highlander at Woodbine. I don't think she wants to be on the lead. I think she wants to be just off. As keen as she's been early in her races, I think she's better with a target, sitting and trying to finish. She's going to be 20 to 1. I'm not saying she's going to absolute slam dunk, single her. But I think she could outrun her odds, put it that way.
12 more questions left, Matt, if you can believe it. Let's get to the next one, AJ. On the TV programs, handicappers were asked to give it a best bet. Give us a best bet for a race of our choice. I like this one. I'm going to go with the Exacta in the filly and mare turf. Love and love's only you. I think, all you need is love. If you extend love to mean love's only you in the filly and mare turf. I respect War Like Goddess, but at the prices, give me those two, box them up, and let's be done with it.
Well, then this is going to be a good way. I told you before we started this show, I was going to pepper you with a question or two.
Yeah.
Give me your assessment of Love.
I think she's excellent. I mean, I think she'd be worthy of running in the turf. I think circumstances with O'Brien being able to run her here and then let, another one of the Coolmore runners into the turf is the reason she's here. I think figure-wise, she's pretty consistent, and I think she's getting a little bit underrated, honestly. I mean, earlier in the week, she was 6-1. Now, some of that might have been the uncertainty about which race she was going to go in, but, I bet out, man. I mean, 6-1. I mean, to me, she's 3-1, and even now she's longer than that. So I like her.
I texted Nick this afternoon, and I said, I could, unless you tell me something that makes me think otherwise, I think she could bury this field.
Yeah.
I mean, especially so my logic is you go through, I think she really appreciates hearing her feet rattle. And I think she's going to get that here. It's not that she can't handle some ground with a little bit of give, but I think she truly appreciates firm turf. I think this is going to be about as firm. I looked at the going stick, and I know it's not the perfect sort of assessment, but what they rated Del Mar this morning, we're recording this on Wednesday, was on par with the turf courses she ran over at Ascot over the summer, where she ran her best races here. And the big thing for me, and I mean, you would know better than anyone, look at the fields that she's been taking on.
Monsters.
If Mishriff or Adayar were in this race, they'd be barred from the wagering. So, I mean, and by the way, I'm not somebody who buys into weight too much. I will buy into 13 pounds.
Yeah, it's significant.
Like it's not insignificant. I just think this is going to be the class. I mean, what? I don't want this to come across as too, negative, but this is the easiest field she's faced in 2 years?
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, I would just say don't underrate Love's Only You. That form
she was the other
Dubai,
one.
Yeah, I mean, that form from Dubai is sick. That might be the best form that anybody in the race has. I mean, I guess Tarnawa fans will argue with me, but it's those two form lines that really make the most sense to me. So yeah, give me those, box them up, and let's call it a day.
I'm with you. I mean, those were the two that I had circled, and to the point of, and again, I don't think I'm spoiling anything. Many of you will have either already seen the show or missed it, but Love, I went from we need to give out a lock, a value play, and an Arkong pick, a horse that's just a bomber. For my lock, I went with Love, given the price that she's likely to be from what you've laid out. And I say that I could still see her getting into that 3-1 range, but 3-1 might be value in here.
Yeah, I mean, the 6-1 felt like stealing. I'll put it that way. AJ, let's keep it going. Okay, Lou. Oh, my man, Lou. For each of the content providers, what Breeders' Cup horse is your lock for the 2 days? JK loved Monomoy Girl. Curious what the lock is for each of us. So I guess just we're talking most likely winner. Ooh, it's tough. I mean, it's either Jackie or Life is Good. Maybe given the draws, I'll go Life is Good. I mean, this is the fastest horse in the race, and he's got a pace advantage, and he's well drawn. I mean, I think Jackie is I think they're both. I mean, for me, they're both odds on. I love both those runners at big prices earlier, fixed odds. I made very, very large bets on both of them. I'm just going to make them co-picks. What about, once their corrected prices are 4 to 5, it's you're not as excited about betting them, but they're still horses to key horizontals around for me. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, if I needed to just pick a most likely winner, I think it's Jackie's Warrior. I don't think anybody can step with him. I love Life is Good. I respect Ginobili. I think Ginobili's a good horse. They put blinkers on him, and he's been a different animal. He also likes Del Mar. He's got some speed. I think those two could certainly hook up. And as much as I love Life is Good, and I think he can sit if he has to, I don't know that for certain. Jackie's Warrior, it doesn't matter what figs you use. I mean, there's no one within a few lengths of him right now. If he runs his race, I think he wins by open lengths, put it that way.
10 more questions. We're only going to do 10 more minutes, so we've got to be quick. AJ, let's go. Gary, $2,000 budget for the Breeders' Cup. Likes to play win pickets, doubles, pick threes, fours, five, sixes. How would you distribute your money across the races? Thanks, guys, for the best content out there. Ooh, this is a tough one that I'm not prepared to really answer properly. But I would say, it just depends on, Gary, I would just say, look at where your strongest opinions are and just find whatever bet it is and put the vast majority of the money through that, whether that's a double, a pick three, a pick four. I'm sorry, I didn't prepare, and I'm not not ready to give you like a proper answer on this one. And we do have a lot of more questions to get to, but I would find the strongest opinions, whether those are negatives on favorites or positives on shorties, and I would just try to allocate it according to that. The best bets are when the bet that you're writing down is reflective of what your opinion is in the race. So that's a very hard one to. It's a great question. I feel bad I'm kind of punting on it, but that's where I am. Do you have a better answer than me?
No, and I mean, this may be sort of an unpopular take as well, but not only do you need to find your strongest opinions, but you need to be honest with yourself. If you're someone who likes to play a pick five, but you're terrible at them, don't play it. Play a double, hammer a pick three. There's no need, just because it's the Breeders' Cup, and I love the Breeders' Cup. It's my favorite 2 days of the year, but don't all of a sudden do things that you're not good at. That's dumb. Stick to what you're good at, because you're still going to get rewarded because of the depth of the fields and the prices that are there to be taken. I think you just really need to hone in on a couple of spots and hone in on the wagers that you're good at and hammer them.
I love that point. And I'll just piggyback on that point by saying, rather than, to get the action to spend $1,000 in the pick five, if your two races that you have strong opinions about are back to back, bet the $1,000 in the double.
Yes.
You can make just as much money in the double as the pick five.
Correct.
You got to think about the amount of money that you're risking. It's all about risk and reward. All right, let's keep going, AJ. We're down to single digits now, at least. Okay, Joe, if time permits, comment on the all-turf pick four wager set on Saturday. I mean, this is amazing. Yeah, given the short price favorites, could this be a great opportunity? I think so. And what I think would make it really good in this all-turf pick four is if you can key it, find a race or two where you can really dial down. I don't think it's a great idea to go spread. But I mean, honestly, even if you have one race that's like your opinion, if you can go lock it up, spread, I think you're good. But I want you to have, if you're going to play that pick four, I want you to have two opinions. And that can mean either two races you're trying to lock up with two or three runners, or maybe a race where you're just completely chucking the favorite, and another race where you can lock it down to two, and then you can spread in the other two. I don't want you to go spread.
We are deep in the, as far as the show is concerned, in three of the legs. We are very narrow on the turf. And to your point, it's basically saying it's not the most brilliant opinion, but we think the top of the market is accurate. And we think it's going to go through a Tarnawa or a Domestic Spending or a Tiona. And beyond that, I think the other three races, you have the opportunity to perhaps catch a price somewhere. So we did go a little bit deeper. We actually, in a funny way, we have gone widest at the top, and not by design, widest at the top, and we get narrow toward the end. And honestly, that's a way that I enjoy going about putting together multis. Granted, I don't play a ton of them, but I kind of like the idea of, if I can get to the end and I have that one opinion, say, you know what, I'm alive here. I like the horse. If the horse wins, great. If not, that's fine. I at least had a chance, as opposed to going the other way. And when I say that, I'm not saying, do something just to do something. But I also, if I have a strong opinion toward the end, I'm not afraid of going a little top heavy at the beginning of it to try to get to that point. If you like somebody at the beginning, you're better off getting real narrow at the front. Say, you know what, if it doesn't work, I can always come back with a double. I can always come back with a pick three, do something like that. But it's funny that you bring up this all-turf pick four, because we are rather wide and we get a little skinnier as we get toward the turf.
Let's move on to the next question. All right. Take it for a given that a BCBC player has lost the minimum going into Saturday. So we're down to 5,700. That player is willing to make an all-in move early in the day. What is the solid 2-to-1 shot to play on Saturday to get the bankroll back up in there? Or what daily double would you play to get your bankroll there? How would you do that if you were looking to get involved early on Breeders' Cup Saturday, Matt?
Boy, and noting that the $15,000 number by the turf was mentioned. So the turf is the 11th race. I mean, I'm probably going to be sort of posed with this question as well if all things go according to plan. But I guess you could be looking at something like a Love or Love's Only You into Jackie's Warrior.
Yeah, I like that.
But again, you're pushing. You're basically saying if this doesn't come in, I'm done. If you're someone who wants to try to spread a little bit more, maybe you take Jackie's Warrior into a horse that's a little bit more of a price in a race like the mile, that maybe is a little bit more wide open. But if your opinion's right, you're going to get rewarded. I think those to me would probably be the kind of, I honestly, I just named two wagers that key around Jackie's Warrior. I think many people are going to be doing that sort of thing. It makes me wonder, and this is just sort of a thought bubble thing. It makes me wonder if more people are going to press hard on tries, knowing that many of these multi races, and I say multis, in BCBC, it's only doubles, that, they could be rather formful. And you're going to have people dumping massive amounts of money into these doubles. I wonder if that forces you to kind of rethink things, and maybe you just press up some triples and things like that to try to find some sort of a separator in a day or 2 days that could be rather formful.
I don't hate the idea of just, having to go pedal to the metal, just try to beat Gamine, try to beat Golden Pal, and come up with some sort of double. CC and Bella, you use Dutch principles, and you go CC and Bella Sophia, and then you spread in the turf sprint with the likes of Emirati Anna, Lieutenant Dan. We had a very compelling case on the show earlier for Charmaine's Mia. You would barely have to spend any money to cover her. Caravel and Kamari, and you just hope for the best. No guts, no glory. That's one idea that I wouldn't hate doing. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, Christy does not usually hedge bets, but has some higher odds horses she could see winning. Best wager to use for horses you might not want to include in your horizontals, but don't want to miss out on them if you do get lucky. I would just say you just got to play that by ear, see what you're alive to, and then, you have the opportunity, if you're playing a pick bet and you have a horse who's going to be a big price, you could just bet to win in the pay leg and cover it that way. In an ideal world, you'd be able to cover that horse in the horizontal because you're going to probably get paid in an outsized way. But I have no problem with horses that, you like, but you don't love, but they're huge prices, and you just bet them to win in the last leg to cover. What do you think about that one, Matt?
This is not going to be a popular opinion, but I kind of tipped my hand a little bit already. Don't do anything different than you wouldn't do on a Friday at Belmont. If you wouldn't do some sort of a hedge thing or do whatever don't do it here. I don't know. It may sound negative, but I think I'm just being honest. The idea of these 2 days are fantastic. They're brilliant. You've got amazing opportunities. But at the same time, I don't think you should go totally altering your philosophy just because it's the Breeders' Cup. I think that's a quick way to have a really crummy weekend. 6 more questions left. Let's go, AJ. What do we got? Jack, what source do you use to watch your European races? DRF Formulator does not have them. YouTube, baby. That's the easiest thing. Almost all the good races are going to be on there. Also, if you want, sign up for an account with my friends over at theraces.com. They're going to have all manner of replays, and you're going to get your money's worth. It's just tremendous races. And, obviously those guys have been huge supporters of mine, so I'm totally in the tank for the home team here. But at theraces.com, another just tremendous source for racing information internationally. Anything to add to that, Matt, or could this be a real quick one? The only other one that I'd add is France Gallop. If you're looking for the French replays, you can go over there. I think At the Races might have the French stuff now. Oh, then there you go. You might cover it, but if they don't, the France Gallop site, back in the day, I remember Dan Illman and I having a giant laugh about how we were the only Americans trying to learn to read enough French to watch the replays on France Gallop. 10 years ago. I hear exterior constantly. Yeah. What else we got? European horses are going to have an impact on Friday and Saturday. We've covered most of them. Best website for foreign replays for free with YouTube. And thank you, Andrew, for that nice comment. But
I mean, I think the Euros could have a really, really good time. I love Cachet. I love Modern Games. I love Space Blues. We love Love. We love Love's Only You. I think Walton Street has a massive shot in the turf. Those feel like the main ones for me. And anything that we haven't talked about yet, Matt, in terms of Euros that you want to mention quick?
Tiona might be the only one.
Do you think she's fast enough? I don't quite get. I mean, a lot of smart people love Tiona, and I don't really. I'll be honest, I don't quite get her.
Yeah, I mean, Nick and I kind of share a similar opinion in that it feels like she could either win or be nowhere. Because I do like these last two races that she's run against older horses. One of the funny ones, too, though, 2 starts back, she ran in a figure 8, which is very unique as far as we're concerned here in the United States. But then she defeated Desert Encounter, who came back to ran a credible second in the Canadian Patterson International. So to me, she was intriguing at 12 or 15 to 1. When I saw the 6 to 1 morning line, I said that doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, what else we got? Golfer Dave. Del Mar can be tricky in the winter. The tides, what track will be more affected because of tides, dirt, or turf? See, I don't know. I mean, I've heard this for years about the tides in Del Mar. And I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you've got a tide pool like 50 feet from the damn track. But I don't know. I mean, this sounds like narrative stuff to me. I don't, I think you just have to watch. You have to pay attention. You have to see what, if any, biases are there. But I'm not going in there. I'm not looking at the tide charts in the morning and trying to figure out what's going on. I don't necessarily believe that there's any signal looking at Del Mar and the tides. I mean, to me, on the dirt, very often that rail is no bueno, and you want to be up front. That's my universal dirt bias at Del Mar. It does seem like it plays a little bit more to speed on the turf as well. But when they're these really classy horses, that stuff can sometimes go out the window. I'm not too worried about it. What do you think, Matt?
No, I don't. That's way over my head, and it feels a little bit like an excuse. If your horses don't run, it's because of the tides. Yeah, Dave, I don't mean this. I don't mean this as a slight to you. I don't have the headspace for that.
Let's keep going. BJ, what's the biggest thing that those of us who don't play California should keep in mind about Del Mar? Well, I'll go back to what I said. You got to watch, you got to see, but very often there to me in the last few years, these deep tiring tracks, that rail is no good, but you still want to be forward. So give me a horse. I know JK is actually worried a little bit about Jackie's Warrior. I think he's so fast, he can break, get away from their running, and get off the rail and be in a fantastic spot. But I mean, for me, that's the biggest thing about Del Mar, generally speaking. You don't want to be too far back, but you don't want to be pinned down at the rail. What do you think? Anything specific about Del Mar that you're, expecting to surface in terms of biases?
No, I mean, kind of the thing that I brought up, especially about the turf course. I think you want to be cognizant of horses that run well around the bend, given that you are genuinely dealing with a bit of a tighter turf course, given the way that they kind of altered things because of the configuration back to get the Breeders' Cup here in 17. So keep an eye on those horses when you go back and watch tape, or if you are using some sort of a feet per second calculator, whether it's HTR or a different product or your own product, look for those horses that interior move. That's actually a strength of theirs as opposed to just relying on the straight, because the straight is not nearly as long here at Del Mar as it is at some other tracks. It's
a short straight and it's tighter turns, and I am going to downgrade horses more, marooned in the parking lot on the turf. That is one of the things I'm going to say. Doesn't mean they can't win. Tornado is so darn good. If there's enough pace in there, she'll just drop in. She'll come running. She could win anyway, but I do think it's so tight. It gives reason to oppose. It doesn't seem like it's quite maybe as banked as some other courses as well. But, we're going down the rabbit hole now. I think we got 2 more, AJ. Let's keep going. How does one watch a race replay? Look at the chart first, watch the winners first, etc. And then a question about tournament strategy. Let's do the replay question from Bobby first. I think that's really interesting. Matt, you're a great race watcher. How do you approach your replay work?
I think the best thing that you can do is to get out of a habit, and this also goes for just race watching in general, of watching one horse. I think watching the totality of the race, how things unfold, can give you a better idea genuinely of how each horse runs and whether a trip was good or bad. I think another thing that you want to do as far as your tape watching is concerned, not just watch one race from one day, watch multiple races from any given day to find out was actually being outside advantageous. Was being down on the rail advantageous? Was it all speed? Was it all horses from rallying from off of it? So I think there are a number of things that you need to factor in. If you need to go back and sort of focus in on that one horse, that's one thing. But I think for the most part, keep an eye on the entire field of the race, and then go through and say, you know what, this horse actually ran considerably better than maybe the paper would suggest. Make a note for that. Take advantage of it next time out. That's usually how I go about it. And I think if you're looking for sort of a shortcut of which replays to watch or not to watch, that's really not the right way to go about it, because in theory, a poor trip or a troubled trip anyway is not going to yield a very fast time or the fastest time. So you're not really going to get the full value of watching the tape. But also you can go through and say, I've narrowed it down to 5. Let me go through and watch the tape of the 5 and see which ones either sort of support my case or go against it.
That's a great answer. I would say, generally speaking, common races, do the trip work on a common race if there's a bunch of horses in it, and then do the trip work in a fast race, or especially a fast race where there was either like an unusual pace, like a fast race, a race that is fast to the pace call and fast to the end. Like, you want trip notes on every horse, because even like a really subtle move in a race like that can be very telltale, and that can yield a next out winner. You're going to want to pay attention to that. Or when there's biases, obviously, like anytime there's a bias, you want to do, bias and a fast race, especially, like, you want to get the trip notes. You want to like grind on those trip notes and get everything perfect, because those are races that are likely to yield fruit. Now, Bobby had another question about tournament strategy. And it was actually a sophisticated question. The idea of the 2 entries and trying to combine 2 entries in a live bankroll contest. Look, it's completely legal. They let you do it. And yeah, I mean, you're taking, if you don't do it, you're taking a knife to a gunfight, in my opinion. And you're wanting to look to combine in the races that are the most straightforward. When you can lock it up, if you can play a 3x3 double or a 2x5 double or whatever it is, if you can, go into an event like the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge with your 2 $10,000 entries, starting with $7,500 on each, and find a spot where you can make, you don't even have to, it doesn't even have to be a good bet. It's so advantageous to have one 15,000 instead of 2 7,500s. You have to find the right opportunities. And as far as Dutching goes, we've talked about it. There are ADWs that give you tools to do that. There are spreadsheets that give you tools to do that. But honestly, if you're not doing it, you're doing yourself a disservice. JK might get mad about me even talking about this as publicly, but I mean, Bobby asked the question so well. I feel good telling him that that's an avenue you want to explore if you're playing multiple entries in a live bankroll contest.
Yeah, I don't think you're breaking any news there with that sort of philosophy, and I think that's, to your point. I mean, it's why having that second entry is as advantageous as it is. Personally, there's a part of me that would appreciate being limited to 1. Where
I agree. It would be much better. From a sporting point of view, it would be much better. But it's not the world in which we live. Well,
but to the business side of things, I mean, look, 2 entries are better than 1. You're going to get more handle out of that. So I do understand why, that's put in place. But if you can do it, you might as well.
Let's do it. All right, one more question, and then we can go to bed, Matt. We got AJ. John Hyde asks, what role does the birth month for a 2-year-old play in the Breeders' Cup in your selection process? Precious little is the answer for me. I mean, I see I get the idea that, a horse born later might have more room for improvement, but I'll be honest, John, I rarely even look at it.
Yeah, I can't say, and I have heard enough people talk about it with the 3-year-olds around Derby and Oaks time. So theoretically, it would be even more important now as a 2-year-old. But I just, it's never really been something that I've considered. I mean, you occasionally get the May foal that's very good, and you go, oh, wow, they're young. Oh, great. But they're fast. I don't really care. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that there are so many other factors that I want to take into consideration. The month of their birth is not one of them.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter, by the way. I mean, do a study, like really take a look. Like, you might be able to find some signal, but you just get into like splitting hairs to a degree that I don't find Like it's just not the way my brain works. But I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I mean, it's a really interesting idea. And it would be, if you had an algorithm about racing that had like 50 factors, that would be one of them. And it wouldn't be surprised if it could throw off a little bit of signal, but it's just not something that like my brain has time to focus on either. Did you, Matt, you had alluded to some other questions. Yet, did you have another one or two for me before we get out of here? Any races that we haven't talked about that you want to?
Yeah, specifically probably the mile. When you take a look at the Euros, you've already mentioned that you think Space Blues is very good. One horse that I have more or less thrown out, but I've heard some people talk about. I mean, do you have any opinion of Mother Earth? Because I just, based on the form, I'm not really seeing it, but there have been enough people that I respect their opinion that think that she's got a chance.
She's a little interesting. I'd probably end up putting her in on like the B line or whatever. I mean, I like the fact that she's run well around North American configuration before, and that's second in the Breeders' Cup last year. And her form is okay. I mean, 3 lengths to Baid is nothing to sneeze about. I mean, I haven't come up with her. She wouldn't be like in my top 3 picks, but I mean, I get it. I mean, a big run from Mother Earth. I mean, I can't tell you that it would be any big surprise. I'm sort of sitting on the fence here with the way I'm answering this question, but I see her as a secondary type contender, 6 or 8 to 1. And I think that's the price she's going to be. So I'm not super interested, but I'm not interested in getting knocked out of any like big picks with strong opinions in other races based on her.
And I guess the last thing I'll leave you on is the Juvenile. We have a good group of horses. So it would seem highly unlikely the scenario in which a one-time starter leading into this race is good enough to win. But the tape suggests that this Jasper Great could be pretty good. Someone I know that we both know, I won't name names, but he makes figures for Japanese racing. You might be able to figure this out. He said the number was right around a 75 as far as a comparison to a buyer. So
Too
pretty
slow.
good for a first-time starter.
But
still way behind.
Yeah,
Still way behind. Do you have any interest in using Jasper Great? Not necessarily on top, but just at all.
I can't. No, I'm tossing him completely. And there are sharp people who like this horse. Stephen Christ made a good case for him. And who was it? Somebody else on one of the shows, maybe even Sean, had some interest in him. But here's the key point to me: Stephen Bonnick did the work, and 3-year-old average 3-year-olds on the same card ran 3 seconds faster. Like no, I just can't. If he wins, I lose.
Just your standard 15 length difference.
Yeah. If he wins, I lose. I mean, look. I mean, I saw him in the morning. He looks great. I mean, he's a gorgeous horse. Like I'm not going to try to. If somebody said to me, I'm going to use the horse, I'm not going to be like, oh no, don't use the horse. But I can't. I mean, based on that, I can't see it.
That's fair. I mean, look, he's not one that I have on my short list. He's not one that I will use at all. Period. But I just did find it fascinating that I respect the Japanese contingent for coming here, especially with a 2-year-old. And by all accounts, it was right after the race. They said, we're going to the Breeders' Cup. And, again, I feel like the Japanese group of folks, they'll send horses to these international races when they think they've got a chance. They're not going to do it just for the sake of doing it.
I love it.
It's great sport, but I found it fascinating that it seems like it was pretty much across the board. Like, hey, we're going.
I love the international participation at the Breeders' Cup. And, I think Japan have a huge chance with Love's Only You if our girl Love doesn't get it done. But, and I want to see them keep trying. And I want to be, even with Jasper Ridd, I want to be wrong. Sometimes, look, as a bettor, it's hideous to be wrong. It's the worst part of the job. As just, but put betting aside and just think about yourself as an analyst. And, we're confident. You and I are confident enough guys. We know what we're doing. There's something great about being wrong as an analyst in the sense of it's wonderful to be surprised. And, Jasper Great winning, it's not like I'm going to have a sour lemon face. I'm going to be clapping for the thing. I mean, that would be an amazing story. And it'd be great for racing and great for our business to see Japan get a race like this at the Breeders' Cup. But at the same time, I can't see it even if I squint.
If you want to put like in a pecking order, I'm not even going to put it, I shouldn't say that. If you want to classify a number of results that would be just fantastic results, Jasper Great or any of the Japanese horses winning, California Angel winning.
Oh, that would be the best. That might be the best of all.
And I mean, you can go through. There are even some other runners. Val Brinkerhoff has a runner in the Dirt Mile. That would be a fantastic story. Much more, smaller outfit in the grand scheme of things from a Breeders' Cup perspective. There are a number of Matera Sky, one of the Japanese horses. There are so many different horses that is what makes the Breeders' Cup the Breeders' Cup. You get horses from all across the world that, whether they were bred to be something or they just turned into something, they're here. They're on the biggest stage. And, even the heartless gambler and analyst that I am, I can appreciate a good story. And these would all be good stories.
You're not heartless. You lie. You try. You try, but you lie. But it is funny the different hats that we wear, Matt. Well, this was an incredible amount of fun. I missed doing our normal final answer show. Obviously, that went different, but 90 minutes of answering questions, and God bless all the Plus listeners who submitted those questions. We had a lot of great ones, and hopefully we're over delivering on the In the Money Plus side. But this is another cool thing, and I think we're going to have to revisit this concept for Triple Crown as well, having people answer questions. InTheMoneyPodcast.com/plus is the place to sign up. Tons of great information. Our picks grids. Nick Tamaro doing his vertical analysis. We're going to have Frank Scottoni doing his horizontals. He'll do pick fours each day. We've got Sean Borman and Rob Dove, one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today, giving information on the foreign contenders, going a lot deeper than what we've been able to talk about here, which is great. We encourage folks to sign up for that. Matt, I thank you so much for your time tonight. Not easy with where our body clocks are to be doing this, but your energy and enthusiasm, and it's just been so great to have you as a partner in crime, going all the way back to a random conversation we had in 2014. Hey, shouldn't there be another horse racing podcast?
Yeah, here we are all those years later, burning the midnight oil. Although, to be fair, producer AJ is the one who deserves the medal of honor for this effort. For
that guy's hardcore, and with producer Craig completely upside down with the marathon. Without AJ, without Naomi Tucker this week as well, here as my partner in crime, I'd be nowhere. These are the people who make what we do possible, and cannot thank AJ enough, cannot thank Naomi enough, can't thank you enough, my friend, and can't thank everybody out there who's been listening and watching In the Money Plus. It's just been great. Big shout out again to our friends at Adelphi Racing. Great to have them in the boat. We're going to be doing a lot more content with them. And how about our founding partners too? Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, trfinc.org/players. Support the amazing work they do, especially this Second Chances program. I didn't get a chance to fully talk about it with you, Matt, but that day I spent out there at the Blackburn facility, hanging out with the guys who are in that program and talking to them about the way dealing with these horses has changed their lives. Like, this is something, if you ever come up with a score based on something we do, just we don't take tips. Give that money directly to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation and the Second Chances program, trfinc.org/players, and Marshall Graham and 10 Strike Racing and Clay Sanders. These are some of my favorite people in the world. Just such a pleasure to work for them and root for the purple and black. And speaking of people we root for, black type thoroughbreds, Hidden Connection going into juvenile fillies. Very excited to be hanging out and working with them this week as well. That's going to do it. This show has been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your Breeders' Cup photos.